What's going on, guys? It's Enemy1 back here with another video, and today we're going to be talking about what if Naruto was neglected and ended up like Obito, part 6. So let's begin the video. Are you not gonna wake up Naruto? Asked Tsunami, pointing towards the Naruto that was sleeping peacefully on the ground below. Kakashi eyes smiled at her, nodding his head as a response. He needs it. Once he wakes up, tell him that we're at the bridge. He knows where it is. Tsunami nodded, knowing exactly what to do when times like that are odds. Once everything was settled, the team went right on the household and walked right on the wood deck alongside Tazuna himself. They were now in a hurry to finish this bridge. As they all walked, Tazuna brought out a brilliant question. What are the chances that Zabuza and his little wacky are going to appear? Asked Tazuna, hoping for every low probability, with chances being around just or below 10%. Kakashi went silent for a few seconds or two before fully answering the question that was given to him by Tazuna. Around 60% is fair enough. That, though the chances may lower as the time goes. This made them have their eyes nearly bulged out of their sockets. What the hell? That can't be true at all, Kakashi sighed. It's the sad truth, but also don't forget that only can the percentage get lower, but it can also even get higher than it is now, Kakashi said, continuously spinning the bad news on all of them. After a few minutes upon walking, they had finally made it to the bridge that was almost completed, but as soon as they got there, they were stopped, walking with their eyes widened. There were bodies on the ground. Shit. Everybody, surround Tazuna. The two other nodded and surrounded the bridge builder, Tazuna. They all looked around, tensing up in the process. They were now entering a potential battle. He's here, isn't he? Suki asked, getting a nod from the Cyclops himself. The two were shaking their bodies, ready themselves for battle to death. Suddenly, a mist started to form all around them. Shit, now things were sure. Zabuza and his little buddy were back. The mist started to get thick, without much problem. Hatake Kakashi, I heard someone say. It was so masculine and deadly to the tree. Oh, yeah, it was definitely Zabuza, without a single doubt going through their brain. Suddenly, multiple Zabuzas appeared around them. Their eyes narrowed down and looked at all the Zabuzas that had appeared all around them. It was just a water clone that was surrounding them, but here was the real Zabuza. It seems are scared beyond insanity, one said, as one of the water clones said. He saw Suki shaking like before when they had first faced a few days ago. Scared me think again. In an instant, all the war clones were destroyed in a single slash. The sliced up Zabuza war clones became nothing but a pile of water that was on the ground of the bridge they all stood on. It seems like you have a rival, said Zabuza, slowly appearing in the thick mist that covered the whole area around them. But it was only Zabuza there, but someone else also, the hunter ninja. Naruto slowly awoke from his sleeping through a whole day. He sat right up and looked around the room. He raised an eyebrow, seeing that no one was there. Are they at the bridge? Shit, Naruto thought, getting right up and putting on his attire for the day. Naruto slightly groaned, walking downstairs where Tsunami was at. Are the others at the bridge? Asked Naruto, getting a nod from Tsunami in return. They are. Your sensei thought it would be a good idea for you to rest for the day. It says something about you training way too hard. Naruto nodded, understanding what she was trying to say to him. Didn't think you would wake up for today. Naruto formed an O with his mouth. Before nodding his head once more, he made his way out of the house. I'll get going then. Naruto ran out of the door onto the wood deck that was right around the house that Hazuna and the other had allowed them all to stay in. Naruto ran into the woods and applied chakra to his feet. He was walking up to the tree trunk and stood on the thick tree branch that was sticking right out of the tree. I should be there in 10 minutes or so, Naruto thought. Jumping right on the tree, he was absorbing his surrounding very carefully for any suspicious along the way. While Naruto was in midair, he saw something to the side of him. He raised an eyebrow. A dead boar, Naruto thought, stopping his momentum and looked at the dead boar that was lying right on the ground. He furrowed his eyebrows. Jumping on the ground, Naruto walked up to the boar and observed it. Well, it seems to me that someone was practicing their sword skills, Naruto thought, looking all around him. There were marks on the tree that indicated that someone was here. This boar has rotten too. It must have been killed recently, Naruto thought, looking even further from the current starting points. He narrowed his eyes as he saw more marks up ahead. The marks lead to Tazuna's house, Naruto thought. Retracing his steps once more, Naruto looked back as he made his way towards Tazuna's house. Sorry, I'll be there later, Naruto thought. Turning his way once more and focusing on getting back and seeing if his suspicions were true. Though he had a seeking suspicion that his suspicions were true. Naruto jumped from tree to tree, slightly gritting his teeth. There could be a chance that he was too late and that the two of them in the house had died when he could have changed it. Just like that days. Two men barged into the house that Tsunami and Inuri were in. She widened her eyes, turning around and saw the two men that were wielding weapons in their hand. Who are you? Tsunami asked, using a ladle to protect herself with. The two men laughed, not even provoked one bit by her so-called weapon of choice. The ladle won't help you at all, the thug said. I asked you, who are you? Tsunami gripped the ladle even tighter. The two had a menacing glare as they readied themselves just in case he would try and retaliate. You know what? It's quite simple really. We are here to take you hostage. Inari was peeping right behind the wall. The two caught sight of him and sent a murderous glare in return. Tsunami widened her eyes. Inari, don't get any closer, she yelled, looking at him in the dead in the eyes. He froze, frightened at the presence of the two gang members that were right in front of him. Now, we need to get you to Gato. They pulled their arm and yanked her away. She struggled to break free of the grasp. They were too fucking strong. Attempts to break free is nothing but futile efforts. One slared at her, dragging her away even harder. Tsunami felt pain course through her arms as she was taken away outside the dock. Just when, a few meters from the house, they heard a voice. Hey, eat this! Someone yelled from behind them. He looked behind and saw Inari throw two empty cans right at their faces. A sharp metal cut their cheek. The blood stained down from their face. You brat, they yelled, letting go of Tsunami and making their way towards the little boy in question. They unseated their blades and were ready to slice the boy in half. He gulped, seeing as this was now the end for the line for him. Inari, Tsunami yelled, getting up from position. Just before the blade could reach Inari, another voice made itself clear to the world around them. Don't move. They heard behind them. They froze almost immediately due to the coldness of the voice that was directed towards them. Inari disappeared in a split second and appearing sitting on the deck. He widened his eyes, looking in front of him. The two looked around and saw Naruto looking at them. You two are wasting my time, Naruto said, pulling out a kunai from his holster and holding it tightly in his hand. The two members of Gato's gang got a smirk on their faces. It's just another kid. Let's get him. The other nodded, rushing right towards Naruto like a speeding bullet. though they're eating bullets. Naruto stood there, completely silent. "What's wrong? Scared out of your mind, brats?" one yelled, gripping his katana so tightly that the hilt could shatter in absolute pieces. Naruto did not do anything at all. That made them uneasy. In a split second, Naruto appeared in front of the two. "I'm just out of your league," said Naruto, using his leg and brought it up to kick one of their faces. "Ah!" he yelled, feeling the pain rise to his face. More blood stirred around his face as he fell to the ground, feeling the agony of the pain that risen to his brain. Naruto ducked to avoid a katana being struck through his brain. He looked up with deadly but lifeless eyes and did one slick and fast motion with his kunai. In a split second, a large gas appeared on the man's chest. He widened his eyes, not paying attention to the fact that Naruto outmaneuvered him his way and around him. He kicked his way in the head. Blood spattered right on the deck. Those two were knocked out cold. Naruto stretched out his limbs and looked at Inari. "You know, you did surprisingly good there." Inari widened his eyes. Naruto yawned slightly. Walking right past Inari just before he left, Naruto said something. "Crying is necessary. It is what makes us human." Suki and Haku clasped. Her kunai and his senbon needle were battling for the tide. Of every single second that passed, Suki gritted her teeth slightly, though it seems that Haku was barely breaking a sweat. "Give up. I don't want to kill a kid that is much younger than me," Haku said in a very calm tone. It made it seem like he wasn't having a hard time, and the truth was, he wasn't. "I already have an advantage against you. The first one is the water that the clones that Zabuza-sama had created that you destroyed." He was now moving on to the next one. His other hand stretched closer to his mask. "The second is that I have your hand locked. You are going to have to block my next move with your other arm." Haku started to form hand signs with a single hand. Suki widened her eyes. "Shit. One-handed," she thought, trying to jump away in time for her next jutsu, but it seemed that Haku had opened other palms and locked Suki's fingers tightly. 1,000 needles of death. Suki widened her eyes, seeing Haku stomp on the water to make it rise and form sharp needles that were ready to attack Suki. Suki, though, of a quick and simple plan to escape. Suki felt Haku stop gripping her fingers with his own and backed from his own attack. Suki used this time to launch right up in the air, pulling out just about 3 kunais from her holster that was on her right leg. Without any hesitation, Suki threw the kunai right towards Haku. He dodged by backing away just a few meters. Haku looked up in the air and saw Suki soon disappear in a blink of an eye. He widened his eyes and he felt a wind gust right behind him. "From here on out, I'll be the one dealing the attacks." Haku dodged the punch that was aimed right towards him. He moved just a couple of inches away to dodge another one. He held his senbon needle tightly as he clashed one more. Suki pulled out another kunai and aimed it right towards Haku's head. He dodged, but couldn't react fast enough to block Suki's kick that kicked her away. Zabuza slightly widened his eyes at the scene in front of him. Haku is being defeated. No. Zabuza glared at the incomplete Team 7. He saw Haku stand right back up. Zabuza eyed Haku with 2 eyes piercing right behind him. "Haku, do it," Zabuza said, ordering Haku to do something that will, without a doubt, turn the tides of the battle towards their side. "Yes, Zabuza-sama," said Haku, and did a special hand seal, demonic mirror ice crystals. Suki widened her eyes at the feeling of the air that was moving all over them. Such cold air, Suki thought, readying herself for any possible attacks that were going towards her. though she did not expect an eyes to form all around her. Mirrors, Suki thought, absorbing everything all around her. It seems like they were ice mirrors that Haku had created. She never saw such a jutsu before. Kakashi widened his eyes. That's a Kikegenkai. Suki and Menma widened their eyes, hearing those two words escape from the mouth that gave them terrible chills to the spine. Suki gritted her teeth. Haku entered one of the mirrors. Now, every ice mirror that surrounded Suki contained a Haku of their own. Suki looked around, heavily huffing. Shit, she was completely trapped. Now I'll show you how speed truly looks like. Haku threw a Senmon right towards Suki. She didn't have any room to react and suddenly felt a Senmon needle cut a bit of her sleeve and gave her a slight cut to the skin. Suki widened her eyes, feeling another Senmon needle pierce her skin once more. Ah! Suki screamed, feeling an intense and sore pain was all over her body. Haku shot another Senbon right towards Suki. It pierced her skin also. Give up. It's not my intention to kill you. Suki scowled and growled at Haku. It doesn't matter. You're going down, yelled Suki, huffing from her amount of pain that she was currently experiencing all throughout her body. God, she was fucking tired. Just before Haku's that surrounded her threw another round of Senmon needles, Suki started to form hand seals. She inhaled. Fire style, great fireball jutsu. She then exhaled a blast of large fireballs from her mouth. She watched as the fireball made its way towards one of the mirrors. The fireball did absolutely nothing. Suki widened her eyes at the sight. The fire that you sent will do absolutely nothing. The level of fire is nothing but for food for ice mirrors. She gritted her teeth at this news. Before Haku could send another round of Senmon needles, someone appeared right beside Suki. She widened her eyes, seeing the person right next to her. It seems you're in trouble, Naruto said. You've made it finally, Naruto. He did not respond, just readied himself for battle. He heard Suki get up from the ground and stood right next to him. You could have attacked from outside. Naruto shrugged at her. Yes, but the chances of it failing are fairly high. If it failed, then I wouldn't have been able to get in since she will know that I am around. Suki scoffed, getting into her stance. Naruto looked at Suki. She would just get in his way. He appeared right in front of her with his EMS activated. Sleep. You will not remember any of this happening, Naruto said, as Suki fell right into Naruto's arm as he gently laid her in the ground. A smirk appeared on Naruto's face as he looked at Haku. You know, I could end you in just a second, Naruto said, as Haku looked at him and scoffed. Naruto saw multiple Senmons coming right towards him. He smirked as he let all the Senmons pass right through him. I see. That jutsu requires a lot of chakra to maintain, and while I have a Mangekyo activated, you can't touch me, so what do you plan on doing, Haku? Haku gritted his teeth. What the hell was that technique? Every single attack phased right through him. It didn't matter what he did, he couldn't hit the boy. Think you're done. Let me show you a true power of an Uchiha. Naruto's Mangekyo started to spin. Kamui. Haku's eyes widened when all to his right were pulled into a swirling vortex. I need to end him now, he thought, but that was exactly what Naruto was looking for. Haku went to stab Naruto right in the neck, but his eyes widened when he phased right through him. When his body was completely phasing through Naruto, Naruto grabbed Haku by his neck and lifted him up. Foolish little boy, do you really think that you could win against me? I was toying with you the entire time. If I wanted to, I could have ended you just the moment I returned to this dome, Naruto said, looking at Haku, who was struggling to breathe. Just enemy. I have no purpose to live, Haku said. Naruto looked at the boy and nodded. As you wish, he said as he took a kunai and slit Haku's throat and released him. Well, since that is done with, he said, looking at Suki, might as well wake her up. He put two fingers in her forehead. Release! Suki opened her eyes as she saw Naruto's blue eyes looking at her. Then she noticed that their faces were too close. Her entire face became red as she jumped back. What the hell happened? She said, looking around. She spotted Haku's dead body lying on the ground. Did you do that? She said. Naruto nodded. Naruto, Suki. They turned their heads to see Menma rushing towards them. Are you guys okay? He asked both Suki and Naruto. Is Tazuna okay? Suki asked as Menma nodded. I was guarding him this whole time. Then they heard a loud scream. They looked in the direction of the scream to see Kakashi's arm covered in lightning right through Zabuza's chest. Kakashi took out his arm off Zabuza's chest and looked at his team and gave them a nice smile. Just before Kakashi could do anything else, they heard a bunch of claps and steps walking right towards them. They looked in the direction and narrowed their eyes. Bravo, bravo, Leafs Ninja. You saved me my money. Then again, I would have killed him anyway. The tiny man said. Naruto rose an eyebrow. Gato, I presume, Naruto said. Gato nodded with a smug smirk on his face. Naruto pulled out his kunai. I have to kill you. Nothing personal, he said before rushing at the small army. Gato, surprised by the blonde's act, ran behind the army of thugs. Get him! He's only one brat, he yelled. The small army charged at Naruto, sprinting so that they could meet him halfway. So imagine their surprise when Naruto blows out a huge fireball, burning most of them alive. The men who survived were going to die soon. Gato, Naruto began as he was walking towards the maggot, his sword scrapping against the wall. I know what you did. You murdered countless people, didn't you? You also sent men to kidnap Tazuna's daughter and kill the grandson. But now I'll stop you. Your precious little life is over, Naruto said before grabbing a kunai and throwing it quickly at the man's head, hitting him dead in the middle of both of his eyes. Gato staggered back, falling into the sea under the bridge, dead. Naruto then turned around to look at his teammates. Let's go, we just need to wait until we finish the mission, he said as nothing ever happened. People around the town rejoiced on knowing that Gato was finally dead and Tazuna could build the bridge in peace. The team returned to Tazuna's house to rest. Everyone had been running on their adrenaline the whole fight, so the high was over. Everyone was now notably exhausted. After they came back, it all went downhill. People who abandoned Tazuna had to come back to build a bridge. A massive celebration was held after the bridge was complete. A celebration lifted Naruto's spirit greatly, especially the part where Inari looked like he wasn't the host of pity party anymore. Finally, the day came when teams finally returned to Konoha. They were standing at the end of the bridge, facing the massive crowd. The Konoha shinobi graciously accepted all the thanks given to them by the people. They faced the family who hosted them at last. Naruto could say without a doubt they'd never seen the family of the tree so happy before. Neri, it seemed, had finally stopped clinging on to Kaiser's memory and moved on. All the other villagers of the Land of Waves were standing right behind him and his family. They all waved at him. Thanks for everything, Inari yelled, tears falling down his face as he saw the four making their leave. Naruto was not even shaking, even by slightly at this. He sighed. We'll have to visit some other time, it's fine. There's no need to be so sad about it, Inari. Inari tried to stop his sobs but failed to do so after he started crying even harder. Naruto sighed once more. He promised, asked Inari. Naruto stood there for a moment of silence, just before thinking whether about he could uphold his promise to Inari or not. He nodded, answering his question with a nod to the head. Good. It was all the time for them to all part ways now. Team 7 turned around and started to walk away from the small town in the land of waves. Naruto looked back, seeing them wave their hands to say goodbye to them. He returned by waving his hand right back at them, also say goodbye to them. Once Naruto and the three were out of sight, Kazuna looked at the rest of his family and the entire citizens of the Land of Waves. He had a question for them. Now, let's get on with naming this bridge. I, for one, already thought of one. Oh, what could this bridge possibly be called? Something lame, grandeur, or something just plain normal? The Great Tazuna Bridge. Ew, that's so lame, started Inari, disagreeing with the name that Tazuna wanted to give the bridge. Many of the citizens were indifferent to this and chose to take Inari's side. How about we call this the Great Naruto Bridge? It suits its name better than your lame name, grandfather. Many of the citizens perked up to Inari's idea and railed with shouts. Yeah, a lot of them agreed with a yell. Tazuna sighed, knowing that he had to change his plans of naming the bridge after himself and naming it after Naruto. Fine, fine, fine. We call it that. Team 7 stood right in front of Minato, the fourth Hokage. They had just reported the mission details and things weren't looking so great. So, you're telling me that the C rank mission that I gave you turned out to be a lie and evolved into a B and A rank? Asked Minato. They nodded in unison. The reason is because, asked Minato, with a follow-up question. Kakashi sighed with a creepiest look on his face. He was at a loss of words. We couldn't abandon the mission, said Menma, answering the question for Kakashi himself. Minato took a pause, looking right up at the ceiling. You could have come back to the village, and I would have dispatched another team that would have handled the situation perfectly. This was quite a valid point. Yes, but Tazuna couldn't afford a mission for equivalent level or rank that would have caused problem, Menma said. Minato sighed, knowing that Menma wouldn't be backing down anytime soon. He tried making another point. You're all dismissed. Kakashi, come here early in the morning tomorrow. Kakashi nodded. They all walked right out of the door, Naruto sighed, tiredly stretching out his limbs. They all walked right out of the building and stood outside of it. The three turned around and faced Kakashi. Meet me at the red orange bridge thingy. You know where that is, right? They nodded slowly. Kakashi sighed, knowing that they didn't know where it was. Looks like you'll have an extra 3 hours to look for it. Jane, Kakashi said, disappearing in a swirl of leaves. They all left dumbfounded as they looked at the spot that Kakashi was formerly at. Well, I'll see you tomorrow, Naruto said, walking away. Kushina's pride smiled brightly when she saw Naruto enter and spoke. Son, where have you been? Naruto watched all of them in annoyance. He hated them with everything he had. Naruto ran upstairs and packed some bags. Kushina grew confused and her heart dropped when she saw the passive look on her son's eyes. Minato, said Hokage, grew confused, but everything was answered when the son walked right down with 3 bags. I'm leaving, he said plainly before walking out of the room. Minato and Kushina widened their eyes as the eldest son began to walk out of their house with shock. What? No, Naruto! She shouted as tears immediately fell. Minato flashed in front of his son using his formula, Flying Raijin. Naruto, you couldn't be serious. You're not leaving, are you? This is some sort of prank, right? Naruto only glared at him. In what world would I waste my time and effort into pranking you all? I don't even want to be in the same room as you all. Naruto smiled as he walked out of the house. Finally, I got out of the watchful eyes of the Namikazes, he thought. He walked inside his new apartment and saw Zetsu. This place is quite nice for living for a few months, he said, as Naruto nodded. And that is why exactly I will live here. I will place a barrier seal so no one can enter, and I will be able to teleport to our base at any time now without having to risk reveal my Sharingan.